So we're diving into data analytics today, but this article you sent about Eastridge Analytics,
Right.
it's like next level stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Not your average spreadsheets.
Right. They're using, get this, graph technology. You ever heard of that?
Oh, yeah. It's like, imagine a web, right? But instead of links, it's all connected data points.
Okay, I kind of get it. But what's the big deal? What can you actually do with it?
Well, this article mentioned they helped some bank recover, like, billions in stolen money. Apparently, they tracked this whole money laundering scheme through, like, a maze of transactions, stuff no one else even noticed.
Whoa, hold on. Billions? Are we talking like Ocean's 11 level stuff here?
Even better, it's real. And it's not just about catching the bad guys after the fact. They used what they learned to build safeguards to prevent it from happening again.
So it's like they're not just cleaning up a mess, they're making sure it stays clean.
Exactly. Proactive data protection.
Okay, that's wild. But it makes you wonder, what else can they do with this graph technology stuff?
Well, they do a lot of work with the government. During the pandemic, they used it to catch people committing fraud with those COVID relief funds.
No way. Seriously?
Yeah. By mapping out all the connections between people and businesses applying for those funds, they could spot the fakes that slip through.
Wow, that's actually incredible. It's one thing to talk about data analysis, but to use it to, like, hold people accountable during a crisis, that's huge.
Right. And what I find fascinating is how they bring their core values into all of it. Integrity, interdependence, always growing, being present. It's not just something they say, it's how they operate.
Yeah, those values seem to be a recurring theme in the article. It's like their secret sauce or something. But how does that actually play out in their work? What does it mean to, like, live into growth when you're dealing with data?
I think for them, it means pushing the boundaries of what's possible, always exploring new data sets, experimenting with new algorithms, tackling those big emerging challenges, things like misinformation or climate change.
So it's about more than just keeping up with the latest tech trends. They're using these tools to actually make a difference. But let's go back to this graph technology for a second. I think I need a simpler explanation, maybe a for dummies version.
Okay, so picture a map. But instead of cities, it's every single piece of data related to, say, a company's money. And imagine being able to see all the connections, all the roads between those points. That's what they do. They see those relationships that normal analysis would miss.
So they're not just looking at individual pieces of information, they're looking at the entire network of data. That's got to be mind-blowingly complex.
Oh, for sure. Which is why their expertise is so valuable. They've got this knack for spotting those crucial connections, the ones that can unlock hidden opportunities or, like we've seen, expose some serious criminal activity.
That's crazy. It's like they're playing 4D chess with data or something. But they also do this for businesses, right? Like that private equity firm mentioned in the article. That's not catching criminals, that's straight up strategy.
Exactly. They used graph technology to analyze investments in a particular industry. And by mapping out all those relationships, they pinpointed potential investment targets that the firm had totally overlooked. Companies with, like, hidden potential.
So instead of just relying on gut feeling, these investors are getting this data-driven edge, like a treasure map in a sea of information. That's got to be valuable.
Extremely. It's all about making smarter, more informed decisions. Whether you're a bank trying to protect yourself from fraud, a government agency watching out for taxpayer money, or an investor looking for the next big thing.
So they're obviously brilliant at what they do, but what I find interesting is how they explain it in a way that even I can understand, like that maestro metaphor they use, conducting data like a symphony.
Right. They bring the expertise, the guidance, helping their clients see the bigger picture, and then they're right there collaborating every step of the way.
It's like they're not just analyzing the music, they're teaching you how to hear it, appreciate it, and then create your own masterpiece.
And that's what makes them stand out. They're not just giving you numbers and being like, figure it out.
Yeah.
They're right there with you, helping you make sense of it all.
Yeah, like actual partners, not just data scientists, more like data translators or something, which honestly is refreshing. The data world can feel pretty, full of jargon sometimes.
Totally. And that's where that whole living into growth thing comes back in, I think. It's not enough for them to just stay ahead of the game. They want to bring everyone else along.
So they're empowering their clients to become more data savvy, even if they don't have a whole team of, like, data PhDs on staff.
Exactly. Give them the knowledge, the tools, the confidence to make decisions based on their own data, which is huge, especially for smaller companies. Levels the playing field a bit.
It's kind of like, instead of just giving you the answer, they're teaching you how to get there yourself.
Yeah. And it speaks to this idea that data can be for everyone, not just these big tech giants, that anyone can use it to solve problems, to make things better.
That's a cool way to think about it. And speaking of shaping the future, something you mentioned earlier really stuck with me. Data ethics.
Hmm.
With all this talk about the power of data, it's easy to forget that there's a, human side to all of this.
So important. Data ethics isn't just some buzzword, right? It's making sure that data is used for good, used responsibly, for everyone's benefit.
Right, like just because we can collect and analyze all this data doesn't mean we should use it for just anything.
Right. There's real risks there. Privacy, bias, all of that. It's vital that companies like Eastridge are leading the charge here, setting the standard for how it should be done.
So they're not just shaping the future of data, they're shaping the kind of future we want to live in.
Yes. And they seem to take that responsibility seriously, always thinking about the ethical side of things, asking the tough questions like, what happens if this goes wrong? How do we make sure we're using this responsibly?
It's like they're not just data scientists, they're data ethicists, data philosophers even.
I love that. And it's a perspective we need more of as data becomes, even more central to our lives.
Because at the end of the day, it's not about the data itself. It's about us, the people using it, the reasons why we're using it, and what kind of impact it has.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
But, we've talked a lot about the good that can come from all this. But I also keep thinking about the other side of the coin. All this data analysis it could be used for. Well, not so good things too, right?
Yeah, it's like a classic dilemma, right? More power, more ways it can go wrong.
Exactly. And it's not always some evil mastermind either. What about just accidental bias? Or using data to, reinforce existing problems?
All the time. Algorithms can inherit our biases if we're not careful, so we end up with systems that are unfair or even harmful without anyone even meaning for it to happen.
That's scary to think about. And there's no easy answer, is there?
Not really, but that's why it's so important to be talking about it, shining a light on those potential pitfalls. We can't just blindly trust the tech. We have to be skeptical, ask the tough questions.
So more transparency, more accountability, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And this is something I really respect about Eastridge, actually. They're not just focused on the how-to of data. They're really thinking about the should we as well, the ethics of it all.
Yeah. Well, I think that's about all the time we have for this deep dive.
Time flies when you're talking about data.
That's the truth. But seriously, we've covered so much. Graph technology, data ethics, the works. But if there's one thing I hope our listeners take away from this, it's that data. It's not just some abstract thing,
Right.
It's a reflection of us, our decisions, our values, all of that.
Couldn't agree more. How we use it will shape the future, for better or for worse.
And that's why it's so important to be informed, to be engaged. Don't just let the algorithms decide, right?
Right. Stay curious. Keep asking those big questions.
Exactly. So thanks to everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Eastridge Analytics. And until next time, keep exploring and keep the data flowing.